Dear Sagittarius, someone who once abandoned you is now quietly paying the price with a piece of their soul. And this time, you are not the one sent to rescue them. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. Your soul brought you here. Not because you're still entangled, but because a part of you is finally being freed from the thing that's haunted you for years. Forgiveness doesn't strike like lightning. It falls like quiet rain, drop by drop, patient, steady, until one day it has washed everything clean. And that journey begins when you stop trying to be the savior for those who once broke you. Today I must tell you this, Sagittarius, the one who has always carried the bow of truth and the flame of hope. The one who shattered you is now crumbling under the weight of having rejected the light you once brought them. Not because you cursed them, not because you held on to hate, but because karma is not fire, it is wind. It does not burn. It seeps quietly into every hidden corner where a person thought no one would ever look. They were crying. There's something you need to know. They, the one who left without a word, are now bearing a kind of pain that has no name. No one has told you this, but your intuition already has. One night you dreamed they were crying. One day you suddenly remembered their eyes, not with pain, but with emptiness. That was the sign, not a sign of love, but of liberation. There are 4 things you must walk through. 4 doors your soul has touched but never dared to open. The first door, you see again the moment you were left. Not because you were wrong, but because they didn't have the courage to stay. And now you realize you were not the one left behind. You were the first to walk away from the illusion. You were the only one who truly grew within that love. The second door, you forgive, not so they can return, but so you can move on. You stop being the light for someone who always chose to live in darkness. The third door, you realize no one can break you again unless you hand them your arrow. And you have put that bow away, not for revenge, but to aim towards something else, the light within yourself. The final door, it's the place where you face yourself, no longer the wounded lover, no longer chasing answers, but a sovereign soul who finally understands. No one is ever forgotten. The universe is just waiting for you to be strong enough to understand why everything happened. Sagittarius, you are no longer the one sent to heal others. This time, you are the one who needs to be held, not by anyone else, but by you, your truest, strongest, most complete self. The one who underestimated you is beginning to witness the consequences, not in their body, but in their restless sleep, in the eyes that avoid reflection, in the sighs they release when no one's around to hear. They are learning the same lesson you once learned in silence. And if you're still wondering, did they ever think about you? Yes, but by the time they realized you were the light, they were already blind by their own choices. The universe has never forgotten you, Sagittarius. God has never turned his face away from your soul. He was simply waiting for the moment your heart became peaceful enough to receive what you once trembled to accept. You've already won. Not a victory over them, but a victory over yourself, the version of you that once begged for love, endured silence, and wept in the face of rejection. You have made it through, and that is enough. You don't need to go back. You don't need to sit beside the ashes and try to light a flame in a place where the door never opened for you. This is no longer a test. This is the sacred awakening of your soul, sounding like a trumpet from an angel. You have gone far enough. You no longer have to carry what was never yours to hold. You no longer have to place your hands on someone else's wounds when your own heart is still bleeding. You no longer have to pray for the peace of those who never saw you as a blessing. You once lit the fire. You once kept the lantern burning. You once waited on the porch at midnight, hoping they would return. You once believed that if you were good enough, they would finally see. But the truth is, you saw their worth long before they knew what light even was. And they chose to close their door to that light. Sagittarius, you forgot that kindness is not a welcome mat, and your heart is not an altar for those who never learned to kneel. You forgot that you too need saving, that you too deserve to be held. They are collapsing, but not because you abandoned them, It's because they once rejected the only soul that ever wished them peace. You don't need to witness it to know it's happening. Your intuition, that sixth sense gifted by the universe, already told you. Because a Sagittarius soul always knows when karma has begun to stir. Not through images, but through breath, through sensation, through broken dreams, through the call from within. The Buddha once said, "Karma never disappears. It simply waits for the right person at the right moment." And God whispers to you, "Let go, and I will do the rest." You once reached your hand out into the dark, hoping someone would take it. But now you've pulled it back. Not out of bitterness, but because it's time to warm yourself. And now, it's time to release. Not because you've stopped loving, but because you've finally seen true love cannot carry those who refuse to grow. Some souls only awaken in darkness. Some lessons can only be learned through breaking. Some only see the light after they have lost it. And you, dear Sagittarius, are no longer waiting for them. You once said, "No matter what they did, I still wish them peace." And that proved you are a noble soul. But today, ask the question in reverse. Whoever wished peace for you, who held you when you cried in silence, who told you you don't have to save anyone anymore, who saw you when you were nothing but pieces. No one ever taught you how to stop carrying what isn't yours, how to stop being the healer. Because the world praises those who forgive. But whoever asked, "Do you still have the strength?" Whoever asked, "Have you ever been loved the way you love?" Sagittarius, if today you hear the sound of someone falling apart, close your eyes, and do not let old compassion drag you back to the place where you once lost yourself. They need that lesson, not as punishment, but as understanding. Love cannot be kept by those who do not know how to care for it. Take a deep breath, place your hand over your heart, and ask yourself, am I still carrying a burden that doesn't belong to me? Because maybe you haven't yet realized, karma doesn't just arrive for them. It comes to reveal something far more sacred. Who is truly protected? Who is truly saved? And the answer, Sagittarius, is now closer to you than it has ever been. If you have ever healed the one who hurt you, write this down as a sacred right. I am no longer the one who carries karma for others. Write it, so your soul knows. You don't have to return to the place that shattered you just because someone else refused to heal themselves. Because in the end, you were never wrong for loving. You were only wrong when you loved and forgot yourself. Sagittarius, the second door is opening. And this is not a curse. It is the justice of the universe. You're not mistaken. That quiet stirring in your chest is not memory. It is a signal. A signal that justice, not human justice, but the sacred, silent justice of the universe, is in motion. And this time, you don't have to do anything, except be still. You don't have to go back. You don't have to say a word, because they, the one who once made your heart bleed, are beginning to understand. They look at you from a distance, not with pride, but with the eyes of someone who lost the light and has no way back. This is not a curse. This is a wake-up call. They are breaking, not loudly, not with screams, but with a terrifying silence, as if their soul no longer has a home. You don't see it with your eyes. You feel it with your intuition, the gift God placed within you. Sagittarius, you never wanted them to suffer. You once prayed for them, even when you were the one most wounded. You sent messages filled with tenderness, not to blame, but to soothe. You wrote long letters that were never answered. You once asked, was I not good enough? Why couldn't they be gentle with me? But now you understand. Your silence, your softness, once mistaken for weakness, has become the mirror reflecting their collapse. They are not weary from work. They are weary because their soul is searching for a home it lost long ago. The exhaustion of someone who once turned away from the light, the emptiness of one who believed they could escape the consequences. They thought you were a river that would never run dry. But they forgot. Even rivers can change course. You don't need revenge. You don't have to go back to prove anything. The universe has already spoken. And this time, you are the one being protected. Sagittarius, you are an ancient soul. You were not born to carry the karma of others, not to be a shelter for those running from their own lessons, not to keep alive a connection that no longer honors you. You came into this world to learn how to love and how to let go. Let go with grace, but let go completely. Maybe you still remember them. The unanswered texts, the lost look in their eyes, the nights you cried because they made you feel like a burden. But now, you no longer need anyone to validate your pain, because karma is already doing that for you. And God is placing His hand on your shoulder, whispering, "You do not need to carry what is not yours. You have forgiven, more than anyone ever truly deserved. You fell in silence, and you rose in silence too. You were the one who once believed that if you were good enough, they would come back. But now, you no longer need their return. You only need to return to yourself." If something is taking shape in the darkness, it is not a threat. It is the universe declaring, it's time for you to reclaim all that was taken. Not through anger, but through presence. Because this time, you are no longer the one carrying the burden. You are the one being protected. You are the one whose name has been written in the sacred manuscript of the divine. No one can take that away. No one can rewrite what God has already sealed, but out of justice. And now, as you are ready, we step into the deepest layer of your Sagittarius soul, the place where all that was once stolen, silenced, forgotten, will begin to return. Not out of pity, but out of justice, sacred justice. Justice born of light. If you see yourself in these words, write this down as a sacred declaration. I am no longer the one who carries others' burdens. I am the one who is protected. I am the chosen soul. Sagittarius, no one can take away what God has written under your name. Money, love, loyalty. All three once rested in your hands. Your hands. You gave them away as if performing a sacred rite. You cherished every dream as though it was your own light reborn through someone else. And then one day, money became a debt no one remembered incurring. Love turned into a cold shadow in your chest, and your loyalty was placed on the bargaining table of someone else's selfishness. A relationship that was once sacred became nothing more than a wound that quietly bleeds within. But Sagittarius, listen to this. No one, I repeat, no one, can take away what God has written under your name, even if they erase your name from their story. Even if they live as though you never existed. They can shut the door, but they cannot erase the light, because that light was never in their hands. It is the peace of your soul that was divinely given, and what is written in that light can never be undone. Do you remember the night you buried your face in your hands, too exhausted to even cry? You looked up at the ceiling and asked, "Why do those who hurt me sleep peacefully while I'm left to carry the weight?" But in that very moment, though no one knew, you were planting the seed of your own blessing, not through vengeance, but through the purest form of release. Because there is a divine law spoken by both God and the Buddha. What God closes, no one can open, and what God opens, no one can close. Karma returns, but so do blessings. And you, Sagittarius, are standing at that very threshold. The moment the universe begins to give back everything that was once taken from you, but not in its old form, it returns with the interest of maturity, the interest of self-love, the interest earned from learning to live alone without letting your light fade. They once thought you were weak because you didn't fight back. They thought you had lost because you didn't struggle to keep them. They thought you would remain silent forever. But they didn't know, what is truly yours never needs to be chased, because it always finds its way back. Just like spring never asks to be invited. Just like dawn never needs an announcement. You don't need to try to get it back. You only need to keep your heart clean, so there's room to receive what's about to arrive. I know, you were once erased from the very picture you painted with your soul. They said, "We can live without you." They looked at you as an inconvenience in the story of their lives. And so you stepped back, like the last one to put out the lantern at a party that was never meant for you. But you didn't disappear. You only went into hiding, so you could return like a miracle no one could deny. What was taken was never truly lost. It was simply set aside, waiting for the day it would return, in its brightest form, at the moment you were finally ready. Can you feel it? Something is shifting, slowly but irreversibly. You no longer pray for them each night. You no longer whisper their name by candlelight. And because of that, they've started to unravel. Not because you cursed them, but because you no longer hold them in your light. They once believed you were their eternal sanctuary, but you are no longer the keeper of their karmic weight. You have set them down, and only then could karma find its rightful path to the one who truly needs the lesson. If they mention your name now, it won't be to beg for love, but to ask, how are you still thriving? Because you never let their darkness touch your light. Because you forgave quietly, deeply, like the ocean, silent but never empty. And now, what you once lost is coming back to you, not as you imagined, but in the form your soul has truly longed for. A person who understands with just one look. An opportunity you don't have to compete for. A peace that no one can disturb. Then write this down. I now receive what belongs to me in the light, and I no longer carry resentment. Because it is from that place that miracles begin. Not with bells, but with a sacred silence. Sagittarius, you are no longer the one who carries the burden. You are the one who wears the crown. Not because you are perfect, but because you were honest with your heart. You loved, you fell, you let go, without applause, without a stage, without an audience. And still, there's one thing you've never been told. Something that may bring tears to your eyes, but tears of release. The one who once hurt you is about to face a truth they cannot escape. And while everything around them collapses, you, the one who once endured the most, are the one standing strongest. Because the more you fell, the closer you came to the miracle. The more you lost, the more you were destined to reclaim. This is not the end. This is the quiet coronation of a soul that once shattered and stitched itself back together. You were once too tired to go on. Not because you were weak, but because you were exhausted from always trying to understand others while no one tried to understand you. You once reached out to hands that only ever held you with coldness, but you didn't pull away. You simply learned how to hold your own hand first. You forgave, you hoped until your heart ran dry and no one noticed. But you're still here, not just surviving, but living with a strength no one could measure. They once believed you would never make it, that you would disappear. You hoped. They fought with words. You answered with silence. And it was that silence that haunted them. No one saw that while they were tearing you apart. You were quietly sewing together every torn piece of your soul. You walked through the darkness, not to seek revenge, but to avoid losing yourself. The Bible says, I will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. I will anoint your head with oil, your cup will overflow. You don't have to take anything back, because the most beautiful things are already being prepared for you by the hands of God Himself. You no longer need anyone to validate your pain. No apology is required, because everything has already been written, not in ink, but in light, You may have once trembled as you walked, once sobbed as you let go, once blamed yourself for not being able to hold on. But now you understand, holding on to someone unworthy is not love. Clinging to a connection that makes you doubt yourself is not peace. And now you don't need anyone to see you anymore. Because finally, you see yourself. You were once called fragile, but they never knew. You walked through hell and still kept your kindness. That is your crown, and no one can take it from you. You were once called fragile. The peace you carry today didn't come from being forgiven, it came from forgiving yourself. You closed the old door, and opened a new one, with trembling hands, but with a faith that never wavered. Not everyone survives what you did. Not everyone keeps their heart soft after the wounds you've endured. Not everyone blooms on the ground others called barren. But you, Sagittarius, you did, quietly, powerfully. You are not a flower that bloomed under the sun. You are a sacred coronation, without spotlights, without applause, just a soul that finally came home to itself. You once begged for love, you once begged for acceptance, but now you beg no more. You no longer need them to return, because you have returned to yourself, to your soul, to God. They may say nothing. They may say nothing, but you know, because their silence today is the same silence you once cried inside of. You are no longer the one who waits. You are the one who stands in the light like a victor, with nothing left to prove. If your heart sees itself in these words, place your hand on your heart and write, I have returned from the darkness, and I am no longer afraid. This is no longer a story about who hurt you. It is the journey of a soul who dared to endure, dared to let go, and dared to rise again. You don't need anyone to see you, because God already has, and He has written your name, not with a hand, but with light. If you have ever lived, loved, and healed when no one was watching, then now write this as your vow. I am no longer the one who carries the burden. I am the one who steps into my own kingdom. Thank you, Sagittarius, for choosing to keep living, for choosing to keep loving, for choosing to keep forgiving, even when no one saw, even when no one knew. And remember this, no one can take away what God has written under your name. No one.